And let's fight the real enemies, right? What's the real enemies? Are corporations that want to, and not the people necessarily that are in the corporations, but the system that we've created that prioritizes corporations over people and the people's well-being. That's where we need to focus our vitriol at, not at Mr. John down the street that believed Trump. Whatever. Does Mr. John need good food on his table and a good job? Yeah, he does. So partner with him to see that through and stop hating that man for his perspective. He's thinking through his lived experiences and trying to make sense of the world that he's lived through, and you're doing the same in yours. Hello, family, and welcome back to the Bastion of Critical Thinking. I'm Raven, thought leader, therapist, and theologian, and I'm so happy that you've joined me today. So today we're going to be talking about the thing that everybody has been talking about, child, and I tried so hard to steer clear from it, but I realized that I can't be a person who critiques culture and gives us a platform to critically think through the things within culture without talking about some of the bigger things within it, right? I know I've made the case that we need to divest from pop culture, but that doesn't absolve us from our responsibility of thinking deeply through serious things that happen within our world, right? So with that in mind, I was like, let me go ahead and give my thoughts about the Donald Trump shooting. It was his attempted assassination. That's what we need to call it. I know I've seen some outlets that have tried to mince words and say different things. The man was somebody attempted to shoot the president. And whatever you believe about it, overall reason I'm making this video, y'all, is because I am so exhausted by everybody's desire to be right when it comes to what happened. And what I mean by that is, I've seen all the talking heads, right? I've seen all of the talking heads on both sides of the political perspective, and some that don't lean left or right, but rather just are independent thinkers and independent voices. Or maybe they're not thinkers at all, because I've seen those too. The people who just kind of just saying stuff on a mic and just saying stuff in their phone because they have the video capacity on their phone and somewhere to upload it. So I've seen all of the perspectives, and after an assessment of everybody, because that's what I like to do, right? That's why I created this space. I like for us to think through all of the options and all of the perspectives and then come to something cohesive, but also sound and sober after you've analyzed all the information. So anyway, with that in mind, after watching all of the videos, I've noticed our tendency to want to feel so convicted in what we believe and what we know. And let me be honest, I'm not mad at that. Humans are binary, right? And this will be my first point, and then we'll get into what I think. Humans are binary. And so what that means is we are so inclined to want to go to one side or the other with regard to anything, whether that be like food we choose or different activities we engage in, or especially about perspectives and opinions that we'll have on a specific world issue, if you will. We're so binary, and we want to just feel comfortable and safe in a thing and be like, okay, that's the right thing, and anything contrary to that is wrong. I get our inclination to that because it's so biological and innate to who we are as humans. But y'all, the attempted assassination of a president, it's just not going to be binary, especially with the polarized political landscape that we've created in our country. Okay, Raven, what do you mean by that? What I mean essentially is that over the last several years, and you can attribute it to a lot of things. I know some people on the left attribute it to Donald Trump, and some people attribute it to social media. I mean, it's a lot of reasons, but nonetheless, over the last several years, we've seen an increase or an influx in political polarization and isolation even. And it's gotten things really charged. And I know I'm speaking to the choir, right? Like, duh, we all know it, but I'm just kind of giving space to it. It has us all really, really on edge and real charged. And the vitriol that we show to one another is sick, and it's exhausting. Let me be honest. It's sick and all of that, but it's also exhausting, and I'm over it. And as a person who worked in politics personally, like, that's one of the reasons, the main reasons that I left, because I'm like, it's goofy and it's tired. Why is it goofy and it's tired? Because that inclination towards binary thinking has limited us so much, and it's helped our the real political adversaries, which is not one another, but corporations and big establishment thinking and establishment political apparatus, those bigger parties. It's kind of executed the exact thing that they wanted to happen, which is division and polarization within us. Right? Basically, what I'm saying is this drive towards you're right, you're wrong, I'm right, or I'm right and you're wrong, with something as big as a president being assassinated, that's dangerous. I've heard the perspectives from some people saying like, oh, well, it could have potentially been the CIA. Matter of fact, they're not saying potentially, they're saying it absolutely was the CIA. or the FBI, or to some extent that the government orchestrated this assassination attempt and it was a failed one, and so they obviously are mad and they're going to keep trying. I've heard that perspective. I'm not going to lie. After all of the videos that we've seen of regular civilians saying, no, this looks like this man was, we saw this man climbing the roof, right? And we saw this man about to try and attempt to shoot the president. He was climbing up a roof with a ladder. Maybe
fence line. Saw the guy move from roof to roof, told an officer that he was on the roof. The officer come looking, I went back to where I was standing, heard that there was somebody that could see the person, so I went back to where they were standing, saw the person, went back and told the officer again that if he goes back to that particular spot, he can see the person, figuring that he would go on radio. And when I turned around to go back to where I was is when the gunshots started, and then it was just chaos.
The guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle, absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof, we can see him from right here. We see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him off the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for, 2 or 3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
Point is, I heard that perspective and it's some validity to it. And anybody who says that it's not validity to it is trying to be purposefully dumb, purposefully obtuse, and ignorant on purpose. And those are the worst kind of people that you probably should get away from. So yeah, it's validity to that point that this could have potentially been an inside job. And not only is it validity to that, but that's scary as hell. I gotta be honest. But then on the contrary, I hear the other perspectives where people are saying things like that this was staged and that Donald Trump did this on purpose and that this man attempted his own assassination. He staged his own attempted assassination. And y'all, as much as people are angry at that, and I hear why people are angry at that, but I also can see some validity in that as well, because Donald Trump is the master manipulator and the master puppeteer, right? He has mastered television production. That's literally what his career was steeped in. He tried all the other entrepreneurial ventures and failed at them, but that's the one thing that he succeeded at immensely, being a TV host, right? And a TV personality. And so can I see a world where this man thought that it would be a good idea to orchestrate something for TV and for his public persona to rise, and so where he wouldn't have to campaign as much, because now people see him in this deified godlike light, like this man defeated death. He is all knowing, all powerful, because I have seen some really eerie stuff. People really have deified Donald Trump after this shooting. But anyway, so can I see a world where that's possible? I ain't gonna lie. Yeah, I kind of can. And then finally, I think there's the more mainstream perspective that more traditional news hosts and traditional news networks are espousing, which is that, this is just a freak accident and things happen. And we need to wait till all the facts come back with regard to what happened with the CIA. Where was there an error? Where did they go wrong? And as much as we feel more inclined to push against those sorts of perspectives, because we're also steeped in our own polarized perspectives and positions about politics. I know we're all really anti-media right now, and that's the sentiment online and even just all places now. Everybody is so anti-media, traditional media anyway. So I get our inclination to push back towards that, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily wrong either though, y'all. And so what am I saying? All I'm just saying with all of this is that all of us have the right, and I even encourage us to wrestle with the things that we're seeing within our cultural zeitgeist about this really big world event. And when I say the right, I'm not saying necessarily that you have the right to your own facts, because facts are what they are. I don't want to mince words here. I'm not saying that facts and stats and expertise even doesn't matter. All I'm saying is, I don't want us to be so vitriolic toward one another. Like, let's say you believe in the first thing, right? That this was absolutely FBI and CIA orchestrated. Okay. Again, there's some validity there, and I can see why people could come to that perspective. Or well, let's say you believe in the latter thing that I was just talking about, the one that was, okay, this is maybe staged by Donald Trump. There's some validity potentially in that as well. And I want to say this here to be clear, and just to give this necessary caveat, because it really is necessary to say. As much as I am absolutely empathetic towards conspiratorial thinking and challenging of mainstream thought, mainstream schools of thought, especially after big world events, I am absolutely a proponent of that, because we do have to, like I said, think critically through all forms of information that we receive and make sure that we have our own minds and not just being robots propagating and reproducing things that we've heard from somebody else. That's dangerous. But just as dangerous as that is, a mindlessness society, it's also dangerous for us to go too far into conspiratorial thinking without something anchoring us to reason and rationality. Because when we venture too far off of that in the name of challenging norms and challenging systems or bucking up against systems and being contrarians, then, like I said, we're anchored to nothing, and that can lead to a lot of dangerous precedent as well. Because if everybody is subscribing to their own perspective and not necessarily going with what is established as fact after you've gathered the necessary information to say this is the thing, this is what's true, this is what's false, that can be dangerous if everybody is bucking up against that, because then what are we tethering ourselves to as a society? And then you're just welcoming mayhem within our society. And I don't know if y'all ever seen The Purge, but maybe it wouldn't be like that literally, but that's what our thought zeitgeist is when we're all just like subscribing to things that really don't have any basis in fact or reality or truth because of our gut intuition and feeling. So that being said, yeah, I hear the conspiratorial perspective about this whole shooting situation, and I'm all for it. All I'm just saying is make sure that if and when we are supplied with accurate information and fact-based information, don't be so quick to buck up against it for the sake of being a contrarian, because that can be dangerous too. But at the end of the day, recognize that the people that have differing thoughts about this thing are just trying to make sense of a cataclysmic world event that just happened. And so be gracious to one another, because at the end of the day, your neighbor is not your enemy. You spitting vitriolic words towards your neighbor because they think differently from you is so unproductive, and it literally gets us nowhere, especially when the actual, I won't say enemy, but the actual issues that we actually need to be addressing and contending with to try and improve our world are things that are much larger and that have nothing to do with John down the street who believes that Trump is this deity that just defeated death. Like, it's funny and irritating as that may be to some, or funny to some, depending on which side of the aisle you fall on. At the end of the day, it's inconsequential. Because let's just say, I'll go with your theory. Let's say the CIA did it, child. Like, yeah. And we are going to what? And I'm not saying that we are defenseless in making changes within our country and our cultural zeitgeist with regard to politics and what happens in it. I'm not saying that we're solely defenseless, but all I'm saying is all that does is empower you to be a talking head and sitting on your couch and not contributing anything to the potential solutions to the problems. And so if you have that perspective, cool. And I'm not mad at somebody else who has another perspective, because if I'm not actually contributing to something that improves the world, then what I look like really being mad at somebody for how they think? Again, going back to that binary thinking, people are trying to rush to their specific binary position to make scary things make sense. That's what our natural compelling is towards. So all that to say, what is the point of this video? The point of this video is to tell you not to be mad at other people for having wavering or differing perspectives. I'm not saying nothing is concrete right now. Nothing is definitive. Maybe you feel like it is, and maybe you have an intuitive conviction within you that compels you to one perspective. Cool, girl. Or my dude, cool. And I want to hear it, because this is the bastion of critical thinking around here. That's what we do. We wrestle with thought. Once things come out, you still get to wrestle with that even the more. In that same vein though, Don't be so self-righteous and stringent in your position that you lose sight of the fact that, baby, you're just a pawn in a little tadpole, if you will, in a big pond, just trying to swim to safety. And what is safety? Your family being okay, you being able to afford groceries, you being able to live functionally and healthily. That's what we all want, no matter the political perspective or persuasion that you side with. Keep that in mind. And let's fight the real enemies, right? What's the real enemies? Are corporations that want to, and not the people necessarily that are in the corporations, but the system that we've created that prioritizes corporations over people and the people's well-being. That's where we need to focus our vitriol at, not at Mr. John down the street that believed Trump. Whatever. Does Mr. John need good food on his table and a good job? Yeah, he does. So partner with him to see that through, and stop hating that man for his perspective. He's living out his lived experiences, or he's thinking through his lived experiences and trying to make sense of the world that he's lived through, and you're doing the same in yours. Okay, I'm done now.